Well, good morning, everyone. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager of PR from the Heart. Thank you so much for spending some quality time with us here today. Welcome to the third annual Building a Culture of Reading in Your Classroom right here at Mall of America. Just want to start off by extending my gratitude to everyone for showing up today. I always like to say we all have the same precious currency, 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, and it's a matter of how we spend it. There's a lot of interesting things that are happening right now in the world, and so noting the fact that we can do our part to create a positive ripple effect for children, for parents, for families, for educators, for librarians. I'm a big Mr. Rogers guy on Mind of Things, and he would use the expression, it's such a good feeling. So it's such a good feeling to see all of you here today. We're going to be starting off momentarily with an amazing panel discussion with some phenomenal children's authors, ranging from beloved local voices to nationally recognized names. Once we're complete with the panel discussion, we're going to be having a Q&A, so if you have any burning questions, because there's no short of things happening in the world right now, especially when it comes to our little ones. So if there's any sorts of things that are on your minds, your hearts, we want to make sure that when you leave today, that you feel nourished, fulfilled, if anything, optimistic, hopeful, noting the fact that tomorrow can be a better day, even more so than today. And then, of course, all of the authors who are present will be signing copies of their books, meet and greets, and of course, we have a nice step and repeat behind as well, too. So if you want to get some selfies or photos with the authors, you'll be able to do that as well. And we also want to extend our gratitude to the entire Mall of America events team, because without them, this would not be possible here today. Once we are complete with building a culture of reading in your classroom, the fun and festivities continue. Turning Pages, Changing Lives will be taking place at the Huntington Bank Rotunda beginning at 11 a.m. There'll be face painting for the kids, arts and crafts, and then beginning at 12 noon, all of the authors that you are seeing here today and so many more will be doing interactive story times on stage at the Huntington Bank Rotunda. Also more meet and greets and book sending, so it's literally a full landmark day of children's literacy. So we're going to be starting off by bringing the authors up here on stage. We're going to be diving into so many good things for us to be able to share today. So the first author is here from Nashville, Tennessee. She's an amazing children's author, phenomenal editor. Please give a nice warm welcome for Allie Davis. Here we go. Now, I had mentioned that literally we have authors that are here from across the country and around the world. And we look outside and we see the rain. So it's really cool when we can have someone who's here from Hawaii to bring some more sunshine. I'm here from San Diego myself, so it's like double the sunshine for everyone here in the Twin Cities. So joining us here today, super children's author from Hawaii, January Liddell, is joining us here today. She does phenomenal work when it comes to teaching kids about financial literacy. She's a phenomenal national financial literacy advocate. And of course, there's something connective when we can spend quality time with precious creatures in the forms of animals, pets. One of the leading marine biologists in the country who has created such a very sweet children's book entitled Coda and the Whales, A True Story, Carrie Newell joining us here today, all the way from the Oregon coast. And it's always a good feeling as well, too. You may hear a few Mr. Rogers-isms repeated a couple of times. This man actually joined me for the first Building a Culture of Reading in Your Classroom in Los Angeles back in 2023 when we did this event at the second largest Barnes & Noble in the country at Barnes & Noble at the Grove in Los Angeles. He is born and raised in Springfield, Massachusetts. You may have heard of another phenomenal children's author by the name of Dr. Seuss. He is the award-winning creator of the Adventures of Harold from the Hood series. Please give it up for Dr. Jim Price. It's always important that we take the time to recognize neurodivergency and really provide a good level of support for neurodivergent children, because in many respects they are so much more gifted than we realize, and they have so much to be able to teach us. So joining us is a very prominent neurologist all the way from Michigan / the Czech Republic. She is the author of the new children's book, The Boy and His Brightly Colored Blocks, Dr. Schaefer-Stedron. And it's always important as well, too, when we can teach our children that they can literally be anything, no matter where they are in their lives, no matter what their race, age, ethnicity may be as well, too. And did you know that veterinarians are real doctors? They very much are. So joining us also from the beautiful state of Oregon, she is the creator of the Real Doctors series for kids, Dr. Charisse Roth. Sometimes when we turn on the television and we watch the news, we might be wondering, okay, what are they going to be covering today? Is it this bad news? Is it this bad news? The last two panelists here today bring the good news, not just here today, but when they take the time to share the news on television, they do their part to be able to let us know that no matter what it is that we're moving through individually and collectively, that we are safe, that we are secure, and that we are always protected in the process. Award-winning journalist from WCCO, CBS News Minnesota, Shayla Reeves, joining us here today as well. And we do not have competition until the afternoon with the Minnesota Vikings because I believe they're kicking off their preseason today, if I'm not mistaken. If you're a fan of the Twins, if you're a fan of the Timberwolves, if you're a fan of the Vikings, if you're a fan of sports as well, too, if you're a fan, any Joe Mauer fans here today? Well, there we go. Newly minted Major League Baseball Hall of Famer, but someone who really cares about the Twin Cities community, not just sports fans, but really reminding us that the right thing to do is the easiest thing to do, and that kindness is really such a precious gift that we need for ourselves and for the planet at large. The now retired KTSP sports director, Joe Schmidt, the author of the new children's book, The Right Thing to Do. So, I always like to try to start whenever these events happen, just really reminding us of how grateful that we are. We're spending time together today, we're sharing some really important subjects and topics, but just knowing the fact that we're going to be having a wonderful time here today. I'm really thrilled to be joined by this incredible panel of authors who really we've come to talk about building a culture of reading in classrooms and really what that looks like, sounds like, and feels like, and what it really means for kids, families, and educators in today's world. Before we dive into our discussion, we're going to be going around the panel, so to speak, just spending about 30 seconds to a minute or so each, really wanting to know what is our why. That's something that we ask ourselves each and every day. What is my why today? Why am I doing what it is that I'm doing? The core reason or purpose behind your work as a children's author. So Sheila, I'm going to start off with yourself. What is your why?
So I am a creative deep thinker that loves to laugh and help others see the best of who they are. I work as a journalist. News is what I do, but it's not who I am as a person. And so I feel that's important to me through my book to not only encourage people, whether you're 20, 30, 40, whatever age you are, it's never too late to lean into whatever your dream or your passion might be. And so through my own journey, I hope to encourage people to not be afraid to put their dream or their vision into the world, because you never know who will be inspired by the work that you've been afraid to share.
That's very true. Thank you for sharing that as well. January, and you're very blessed to have two of your children here today. So not to answer your question for you with what is your why, but if you can really encapsulate what is your why and why you do what you do for kids.
So my whys are actually right here. So my whys are my children. I have Nina and Sammy here, and they were the reason why I wrote the book. I made a lot of financial mistakes, a lot. And I realized that I needed to change, and I had this idea in my mind that I don't like math. I'm like, oh, math and I are not friends. And then I realized, actually, we're going to be friends. So I had to change that story. So I went into the financial industry and really love it. So I've been 4 years in the financial industry. I'm a retirement specialist. And so writing the book about money was important for me because I did make all these mistakes. And I wanted my two youngest ones, my two babies, to not make the same mistakes. But with that in mind, I realized that there are 77.4% of us here in America that are in debt. And I want the little ones to start younger at an early age to destigmatize the idea of money and be able to talk about it with their parents, with their peers, because this is something, money is a tool that we can use. And that's what I want to impart to not just my children, but to all the children around in America, that money is a tool that we can use for freedom. And so that is my why.
Thank you for sharing, January. Carrie, the core reason, the purpose, what is your why?
Well, as a young child growing up in Michigan, I always wanted to be a marine biologist. And I always dreamt of working with Jacques Cousteau in the Great Lakes swimming. And it wasn't until I was 29 and I had moved to Oregon teaching at college there that I actually became a true marine biologist. And I started working with gray whales in 1992. I still work with them. And I also do a whale watching business now. I've done that for 20 years. And the main reason now I wrote the children's book is there are so many children in this world who want to become a marine biologist. And again, you're never too old. And so I can tell you over and over again how many young children who have been on my boat have said to me, I want to be a marine biologist, and at least 20 of them that I know of have now become a marine biologist. And so it's amazing. I got to tell you one more snippet. So my book's been out there a few months now. Last week, I had a 2-year-old and I had a 3-year-old. The 2-year-old walked down the ramp with my dog Coda, who I trained to find whales to come to the boat. And this 2-year-old walks down the ramp. She said, Carrie, Coda. And she was so excited when the whales came up. And then the next day I had a 3-year-old. And she went verbatim when she saw the gray whales from the boat. She narrated my book. She says, oh, they stay under 3 minutes. They blow 3 times. And so I made the book as it's true facts about gray whales, teaching kids true facts about them. And it's so awesome to see these young children now who want to become a marine biologist. They're really into it.
Thank you for sharing, Carrie. Dr. Price, here we are, once again. Your why.
So my why, as a public school educator, primarily my why is about the children, about families and communities, connecting with families and communities and having to understand in terms of children worldwide that they're special, that they have a place, they have purpose. That's my purpose, is inspiring youth to be the best they can be wholeheartedly and understand that they can grow and nurture themselves to become successful citizens in the community and stuff like that. So primarily that's my purpose as an educator, and my award-winning series, Hero from the Hood, helps me navigate those avenues, be able to create the social skill lessons to be able to have the kids nurture those things in their early stages of development.
Social skills are very important. We'll be talking more about those as well, too. Dr. Schaefer, I've had the opportunity to meet your amazing daughter. Not to spoil the punch, but Dr. Schaefer is an amazing mom on her end of things. We're all set, I think, with her Mike. One of the nation's youngest children's authors and philanthropists is your daughter, Amelie Anastasia. She is your why, but there's so many more whys that you have. So if you can give us a little bit of a brief encapsulation of your why or whys.
Thank you so much, John. It's so wonderful to be here. My why that really encapsulates my mission with everything I do, whether it's when seeing patients or talking with guests on my podcast, talks with Dr. Schaefer, or writing a book. Storytelling is all about connection with our children, connection with our students. The heart of everything we do, whether we're writing our children's books or working in all of the professions that we work in, we really want to connect with people. And so for my book, The Boy and His Brightly Colored Blocks, it was really about leaning into that and showing how even when our emotions and our nervous systems are dysregulated, we can lean into connection overcorrection and teach emotional regulation. As a neurologist, you may say, why are we talking about this? Why are we writing children's books? Well, at the end of the day, emotions are about communication and emotional regulation, which comes down to having a regulated nervous system. We all can do so much to connect with others, and it starts with connecting with ourselves and learning that regulation. So that's really the why behind everything I do, is trying to help people lean into connection.
Thank you for sharing, Dr. Schaefer. Joe, one of the many reasons why I love you and the work that you do is you are all about community, and the fact that 100% of the proceeds of your children's book, The Right Thing to Do, actually goes back to two prominent Twin Cities nonprofits. Could you share with us a little bit about your why and how all this ties in?
Well, my why really is trying to go to a younger generation and spread kindness, empathy, and inclusion. You know, Joe Mauer was the big man on campus, the best high school athlete the state of Minnesota's ever seen, and he recognized that a young blind student was having lunch by himself. And Joe invited him to sit down at his table. It led to a great friendship, but the impact that story has had continues to go on and on. And and I had been speaking about it. I speak professionally, and I tell the story. It's always one of the favorite stories. And then all of a sudden I thought, this is hitting adults. How can we hit children? Thus, The Right Thing to Do became a children's book. And when I went and talked to Joe and Maddie about it, I said, let's make it all for charity. They were all on board. And we've been able to raise $140,000 for two charities right now. So it's been very fun. And just trying to do my part to make an impact and spread kindness.
You're a good neighbor. Again, you may hear several Mr. Rogers-isms, but this man is definitely a friendly neighbor. Allie, can you share with us your why or whys?
Yes. So I have loved writing since I was a child, knew I wanted to continue writing since I was about 8 years old, and pursued a degree in journalism, and then started writing and editing for a lot of people professionally. Until 2023, when I put out my two books, Clara and the Constellations, and then in 2024, Clara and the Constellations Play Kickball. And my why behind that is because I love story. I love helping children connect with the beauty of books. I love helping other people create beautiful books, so I get to do that as an editor and an author assistant. And then I also love helping children engage with the outdoors and STEM and astronomy. So I've always loved the stars, and my father and grandfather both had telescopes. We would look out at the stars and see the constellations. And so when my children, who are also an inspiration to me, started loving the moon and the stars, the story came to me, and now I get to teach children in schools and wherever I have the opportunity about constellations, the moon, and through the fun stories.
And lastly, for yourself, Dr. Roth, your whys, because you're also a great mom on your own and things. So I know I mentioned why/whys, but you have several whys, undoubtedly.
I do, yeah. So I do definitely have my two boys, Tristan and Cooper, who are in the first book, What's a Real Doctor? And really the goal of the books, the why behind the books, is for children to be able to see themselves in the places they may have never gone before. I didn't meet my first veterinarian until I was in my third year of college. And so, of course, it wasn't on my radar as something that was even possible or plausible or in existence. And so the point of these books, the second book, is really Kaylin and Kylie seeing themselves in professions that they may have never experienced or seen before. It also depicts children that become doctors that are differently abled, have different physical attributes. So all of those things I thought were really important for kids to see themselves in it.
Thank you all for sharing. I'll mention briefly my why. Being part Polish, we refer to our grandmothers as babcia. And my grandmother, Jane Sajacki, is my why. She had passed away nearly 12 years ago now, actually. It was the summer of 2013, if I'm not mistaken. And after she passed, I began to realize that there was just more to life than just what it was that I was doing. I was the host of a popular wrestling radio show called Monday Night Mayhem. Many wrestling fans here in the Twin Cities, I'm sure. And after my grandmother passed, I began to look at life through a little bit of a different lens. And so made the decision shortly thereafter to move cross country from Western New York all the way out to San Diego. And this ties into the release of my new children's book, Walking Each Other Home, Zachary's Mission, a Hospice for Children, because I largely moved out to San Diego to begin the initial efforts of getting a children's hospice up off the ground. Death and grief and loss are things that we can all connect with and relate to in some way, shape, or form. We all move through those sorts of challenges specifically. Knowing the fact that I can do my part in some small way to help children, parents, and families know that they're not alone is profoundly grateful. And so she very much is my why. And it's long since been said, Fred Rogers, he always kept the time, whether it be 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. I think this is a good way before we officially transition into the questions for our panel. I'd like for all of us to actually do this, and I'll keep the time, to remember those who helped love us into being. Whether those individuals are near or far, whether they're still with us walking this earthly plane or they're shining down. Just to take a few moments just to express our gratitude to those helpers of sorts who really helped to shape us and to mold us into the people that we are today. So we can just take a brief moment just to do that. I know that Shayla and Joe can probably resonate with this because in the world of media, you really don't want to have dead air, or in panel discussions for that matter. But I really think that it's important that we live in such a very fast-paced world that we can just really take stock of where we are in our lives and how far that we've come. We talk about this being the back-to-school season, and this particular back-to-school moment, it's really the most interesting season since 2020. When, of course, we were doing our part to teach our kids remotely, virtually. They were spending time with their families through squares on a screen, AKA Zoom. Dr. Price, I'm going to start off with you. What makes this back-to-school moment the time to double down on reading culture in classrooms, libraries, and at home? What are your brief thoughts on that?
So I know when we talk about literature and stuff, I mean, that's the kind of the building blocks of where we learn our knowledge and understanding of things. We gain knowledge, and our kids gain knowledge and understanding of things when they read literature. So important when you talk about children, especially connecting to reading and literature and having that be incorporated into a part of their daily routine, if possible, so that they can not only grow their knowledge and understanding of things, but they can also use their imagination, their minds of creativity to be able to expand, on whatever the story is that they're reading, because, characters go through their story, and the children are also going through that story with the characters in those books. So it's so important to be able to connect in that way when we talk about building that culture of reading in the classroom as well, being able to collaborate that bridge between home and school and having it be understood how important literature and reading is as well.
Carrie, I also wanted to get your thoughts on this as well, too. What makes this back-to-school moment the time to really double down on reading culture, not just in the classrooms, but in libraries and at home?
Well, when I did my book, as I said earlier, I did it as an educational book, but I also wanted to do it showing diversity with the whales, and I made it so I have individual whales in the book. I have whales that have wounds. I have whales that are dark whales and white whales and spotted whales, and so I want the students to know how important diversity is, not only, with us, of course, but whales also have the diversity. And again, it's so important that, we as teachers, all of us, and writers, that we get out and we say, hey, you are an individual, you are important. I mean, in my book, I also have my grandkids. I have my daughter here and two of her kids, and family. Family is also important. And, having, family, and everything else and combine everything. I've tried to do that in the book. And, teach the kids in a fun way, teach about diversity, teach how important, diversity is, and that all of us are interconnected one way or the other.
I'm really glad that you mentioned diversity. We're all connected literally in many ways, shapes, and forms. Representation in books to build that culture of reading, kids really need to see themselves in the books they pick up. This really leads us to our next question, and I want to start off with Dr. Roth and then go over to Shayla. Dr. Roth, why do kids need to see themselves and others in the stories that they read? And especially even on top of that, what's at stake if they don't?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to empowerment. As a child, I remember feeling lots of big feelings, right? And some of those feelings were the feeling of being stuck and not knowing what was possible. And the way that I got out of that feeling was books. And so, one, having the books in your life offers that sense of empowerment, as to your point of showing them the stories that are possible, showing them the things that are impossible so that they can reach for it anyway. But then I think it's equally as important as they see that empowerment coming from either a story or a person or a situation that resonates with them. Because if it doesn't, then it feels fake.
And our kids really know if there's authenticity that's present, whether it be from ourselves or from others. Shayla, why do kids need to see themselves and others in the stories that they read, and what's at stake if they don't?
Sure, sometimes you can't be what you can't see, and you don't know that certain professions or certain avenues are available to you when you don't see people who look like you in those places or those spaces. So I think books are a great vehicle to create that window of possibility for kids to say that this aspiration can be mine too. This opportunity can be mine too. Even to be an author, creating a book, a person of color doing that, knowing that that's possible for you too. I think what's at stake is sometimes kids don't, if they don't see those things, they don't know that the dreams that they have for themselves could happen for them. They don't know that that I could be a veterinarian or I could be an author, because they don't always see people who look like them occupying those spaces. So there are really a lot of talented, smart, beautiful kids out there that just need an opportunity to see that what's out there that they see others doing is possible for them too.
Joe, when you talk about the right thing to do and the Joe Mauer story, when we also think of diversity, it does tie into inclusion as well too, and just making sure that everyone knows that they're loved and they're special just the way that they are. Could you really share your thoughts on why kids need to see themselves and others in the stories that they read, especially for those little ones who might be moving through some sorts of challenges, whether it be emotionally or physically?
Yeah, I think that the great thing is, I think when you read a book, even though they have the pictures there, kids can put themselves in the characters that you've developed as an author. And, in Joe's case, you really have to look and say there were other people who noticed Mike was eating by himself, and Mike was blind, and Mike was different. But Joe, who was the big man on campus, he was the best high school athlete ever, he was the one who was aware and got very intentional by inviting Joe to sit at his table. And so if it can inspire people to think that, you know what, all of a sudden they find out Mike looked a little different, he might have been a little different, but all of a sudden they found out they had a lot in common. They all of a sudden Mike became one of the favorite guys at the table. So I think when kids kind of read that, hopefully it can inspire them to look out for other people and make sure that no one eats alone, and that just because somebody might dress a little different, look a little different, maybe not have all the, everything that you have, dressed like you, that doesn't mean they're different. That means you have a lot in common. You just have to find it.
And then lastly, Dr. Schaefer, especially when it comes to connecting with children who are neurodivergent, we live in a society where it's unfortunate where we can throw labels, especially at our kids. If a little one's experiencing anxiety, boom, they have an anxiety disorder, or it can go down many different slippery slopes. Why do kids need to see themselves and others in the stories that they read, and what's at stake if they don't, in your opinion?
It's so important to see yourself and others, and also to get outside of yourself and be aware, as Joe was saying, of how your peers are doing as well, and lean into that connection rather than correction. I think many of us, we're all of a similar age group in here, other than our beloved children who have joined us today. And we were raised often with correction. We saw certain emotions and certain behaviors as bad. And when we label a behavior as bad, we often use the language, he's bad. We'll use that as an example. So then you have a child who now is associating themselves with bad. I'm bad. And so it's really important that we learn how to disentangle ourselves from this programming of seeing behaviors as bad. Behaviors are communication. What is that child communicating to us? And not only rewiring our own nervous systems to really lean into that, but setting the example for our children that behavior is communications when it comes from your classmates and from yourself, not to shame yourself for your behavior, because if you're having a big emotion, you're not bad. We have in the past painted those emotions and behaviors as bad, but they're communication. So how can we connect? And when children see themselves in stories, and I think that's why, when we look at books for children, we often see a lot of quote unquote bad behaviors and big behaviors, because it is so disarming for children to see themselves in those behaviors. They love these characters. These characters aren't bad. They're just showing the whole rainbow of their emotions and their life experiences. So it's so important that every child sees themselves in the books, and it's really important that when we're talking about neurodivergence, neurodiversity, that our children move away from the labels. The labels can be helpful. They can open doors for us. But in my book, I never use the word PDA. I never use that abbreviation or that list of behaviors, because at the end of the day, we're trying to connect with this character and not label them.
And that's really important as well, too. When a child sees that their story matters, something really does shift. And Allie, you being a great mom on your end of things, undoubtedly you know this, but when a child realizes their story matters, something shifts. What does that power unlock in classrooms and communities and in the minds and the hearts of children?
Yeah, as a mom, I've seen my own two daughters starting to wrap their own minds around who they are. They're tweens. They are very much figuring out who they are, and they need books and people around them and teachers, fantastic teachers, to help shape them, and parents need them to help them understand who they are. And so, there's really no way we can express how valuable your role in the classroom is as a teacher, an educator, a librarian, and your role as a parent in shaping children, because they are figuring it out. Their lives are stories. They have a story to tell, and they need guides. And every single one of you in this room is a guide, even their friends. So the children here too can be a guide to other children and help them understand that they have meaning and that their story matters.
Shayla, through your time at WCCO, CBS News Minnesota, you're telling stories. You're telling stories every day. And both you and Joe are incredible storytellers. So again, when a child realizes that their story matters, that it has inherent worth and inherent value, in your opinion, what does that power unlock within themselves, and then in the classrooms, and then the communities, not even just in the Twin Cities, but beyond that?
It's empowering. It builds confidence. It shows them that their voice matters. And just taking the time to listen to people. I do a lot of telling stories, but also a lot of listening. I think that to know that someone cares enough to take the time to listen and take the time to hear you, not everyone gets that. And so to be someone who takes that time, says, just because you're willing to listen, that what I have to say means something. And that can translate beyond the interaction that you're having in that moment, because they may not be getting that beyond the moment that they're in with you.
And then lastly, Joe, and you've seen this when you've talked with kids, especially all across the Twin Cities, and now Joe has become an international storyteller as well too. When a child realizes their story matters, what do you sense and feel shifts within them, and how does that reflect in the external?
Well, I think that sometimes you see people get emotional. Sometimes you see people realize that I can do better. And if it motivates and inspires people to do better or to think about the impact that they are having on others, then we all win. Then we all win. It was interesting, so Joe Mauer did this kind act, 25 years ago, and I actually sat on the story. I knew this story, but I just didn't do anything about it for almost 20 years. When I decided to write the book, I went to Joe and I said, Joe, why did you do it? Joe, you're walking the big men on campus. You can, you could have your own rules. And Joe just said simply, because it was the right thing to do. That became the title. And it's been great because certain schools who are reading it, that's become their mantra for the year, the right thing to do. And it's not do the right thing, because do the right thing is telling you to do it. The right thing to do has to come internally. And I think that if we can push people, you were talking about it a little bit before, from the negative into the positive, then I think it's a little bit easier. If you command them to do it and demand them to do it, it feels like it's a punishment. If they do it on their own, then they buy into it.
I appreciate you sharing all of that, Joe. And it's something that when a child realizes that their story matters, then it ignites their imagination and it sparks discussions that they can have within themselves, within those that are in their lives. It makes sense to shift into the world of STEM, but not only STEM, but curiosity as well too, because books, they're not just for bedtime, they're really launching pads in many respects. STEM specifically, of course, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, they can really feel out of reach, but storytelling opens the door. January, I want to start off with yourself. How are books helping kids see themselves as scientists, mathematicians, explorers, and maybe even the most important thing, problem solvers?
Well, like any child and even us as adults, we all want something whenever we go to the store. It's either a want or a need. And the stories that I wrote, Alina the Super Saver and Dynamo's Spending Spree, I believe anybody, whether you're 0 years old to 99, you can actually relate to the stories that I wrote, because it has everything to do with what we as human beings like to do, and a lot of us like to shop, and a lot of us need to shop. And so it talks about math, obviously, in my book, because it is about finances. And I think with the idea of allowing the child or the reader to see themselves in my book makes it more relatable and makes it more easy for them to understand. And I did want to make a point. You asked earlier about building a culture of reading in your classroom. And I want to touch on the internet, because I feel that TikTok and YouTube have taken over a lot of our children, and reading is like pushed to the side. And so I feel that in order to involve STEM, we have to, yes, write books. It's very important. And I think Dr. Price has a show. He has a cartoon, which it just makes it come to life even more. And as educators, that's something that I think we need to be a little bit more creative on, is touching the children in such a way that not just it relates to them, but in how it relates to them visually, audio, in all of those senses. Because yes, reading is fundamentally important. We all know that. But now, after COVID, I think we need to be a little bit more creative in terms of getting the children to be more excited about reading. So anyway, I did want to share that, because I feel it's important not only to share about STEM, but just the means and the modes of how to teach a child how to read.
Carrie, when it comes to the connection with STEM and curiosity and imagination, what is it that you're seeing through your lens as a marine biologist and just connecting with those within the communities that you spend time in?
Well, what I have seen is that kids love nature. I mean, I don't care what kind of nature it is. I mean, as a young child, I'd grub in streams and collect tadpoles. So I think it's extremely important to reconnect the kids with nature. As January said, so many kids now, are on YouTube and TikTok. They're not getting into nature. They're not reconnecting with nature. And they're not getting the hands-on part of the STEM. One of the principles of STEM is hands-on critical thinking and everything. And so I try in my book, and still teaching through I have a museum and everything else, I try to connect as many kids as possible with nature. I mean, I do tide pool trips. I take them to see sea anemones and everything else. I'm writing a new kids book about tide pool creatures from my dog's point of view. An octopus grabbed her arm at one point. That's going to be the cover. And so when kids can get out in nature, whether it's whale watching or tide pooling or birding or taking a plant walk, reconnect them with that nature. I mean, that's where we're missing out right now, I feel, with this generation. Reading, number one, reading, and also reconnecting them, getting them out in nature. Get them away from the screen, get them away from, looking at their phone or TV all the time.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts as well, too. And Dr. Roth and Allie, I wanted to get your brief reflections as well, too. When it comes to STEM curiosity, imagination, and how really storytelling opens the door for that. Allie, starting off with yourself, what is it specifically that you're seeing, not only through the lens of your children, but when you travel around, what is it that you're seeing, especially when it comes to connecting with even other educators and parents as well?
Yeah, I could just say amen if I was in church to Carrie. She just encapsulated a lot of my passion right there. So amen. No, I also love helping kids get outside. For me, it's get outside and look up at the stars, right? Let's, instead of looking down at our screens all the time, look up and see the beautiful night sky. Stargazing is a fantastic family activity and a friend activity and any kind of activity. It allows for connection. So a book that combines stargazing with story is engaging their minds, engaging them with literature, and yet also encouraging them to get outside. And I see it too. I'm fighting all the time to get my kids off screens or balance it out. You can't live without them in a lot of ways. Maybe you can in some ways, but my family can't. It's okay if you can't. My family uses screens, but we also balance and we find ways to keep them outside, keep them learning, keep them exploring.
One of the cool things about your books as well, Dr. Roth, is the fact that, again, you remind kids, no matter what that they want to do, that they can do it, especially in the world of STEM. It can feel very intimidating. Am I smart enough? Can I do it? Will I accomplish that? What is it that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, there is no STEM without reading. There isn't, right? That's how you connect to and start to understand the things that you've seen in the world, the dogs that you get to play with, the kittens that scratch you because you picked it up the wrong way, the tadpoles in the stream. All of those things are photographs in your mind that are not necessarily connected to the facts behind what makes that specific animal or species or plant beautiful and unique. That is what STEM is. All of our engineering, all of our mathematics, all of our science and technology comes from nature. The better you understand it within these books are the facts, and that facts are real, right? And I think that that's something that, from a STEM point of view, no matter how complicated it is, there's always a way to simplify it down. When I look outside and see all of the amazing Lego structures that are here, but it all started with one block, one aspect of understanding. And that's how I talk to kids about doing surgery and things like that it all starts with that one sentence that let me know what was possible.
I want to thank everyone for sharing thus far here. As we reach our fifth question, we know that kids today and us as adults, we're big kids in many respects. We're all moving through something. Everyone's always moving through something, right? And books really can be a lifeline. I remember when Fred Rogers spoke in front of Congress to secure what was then, I believe, $20 million worth of funding for PBS. He spoke and he said, what I do, I'm paraphrasing his words, what I do is a resource of care for the kids in my neighborhood. And children's books are that resource of care. They can be a lifeline. So, Dr. Price, starting off with yourself, how can children's books help kids to navigate emotions, to build empathy, and really to bounce back stronger?
So as we know, when we talk about social skills, is primarily what my series is about, we talk about that's the building blocks of how we socially interact, respond, express our feelings, thoughts, and emotions to others, and also how we respond in those social situations. So when we talk about those things, especially with children, those are sometimes difficult things to navigate when we talk about being in a school setting and trying to make friends, whether they're kids, and kind of fit in. And all kids want to fit into some clique in some school setting. They want to be feeling accepted and things of that nature. So when we talk about the building blocks of what that is, that's all part of social skills. And it's so important, especially when we talk about the young stages of development coming up, when they were talking about preteen through 5th grade. Those are the stages of development where most of these social skill habits are made. And, at some point, you go on to be an adult, but a lot of that comes from our youth of the stages of development. And so that's why it's so important to be able to have parents that interact with their kids socially, give them feedback and things like that, have those tough conversations in terms of social interactions and things like that, because those are the skills that will last them for a lifetime. So I think that's primarily what that comes from.
And Dr. Schaefer, this really is the core and the crux to go back to what you mentioned about your why. You remind children as well as families that even if they're moving through something that can be challenging, that is, this too shall pass, just to be with what it is that you're experiencing and feeling in the moment. How do you feel children's books can help kids navigate emotions and build empathy and bounce back stronger?
Well, to go back to the top of how you introduced us all today, you did something so brilliant, which is also the thing that is so brilliant about children's books. There's so much power in pause, in taking a moment. And so we all were gifted this opportunity this morning to just stop and connect with our why. When we read a children's book and we see ourselves in the characters, we see them going through these emotions, we see how people are responding to them, and maybe we see, which is what I aimed to do with the boy and his brightly colored blocks, a new way of responding to these big emotions that maybe in our family systems or in our school life, in our friend groups, maybe that's not something that was modeled for us yet in our childhood, or if we are children, not what we're experiencing in our environment. And so books give you that power, that moment of pause to really consider other ways to do things than maybe the patterns, the habits that you are feeling stuck in. And they're invitations to get unstuck, to learn new things that maybe you haven't been exposed to before, and to just contemplate on that and even practice it. And that's the beauty of books. That's why our children want to often read the same book over and over and over, because they've found a little nugget of something that they're connecting with, and they want to practice it. They want to master it. And so books are such a beautiful way to gift them those experiences.
And then also, Carrie, lastly, with regards to your book, Coda and the Whales, there's something about the connective thread with children and animals. And being in San Diego and being at the San Diego Zoo every so often, I'm captivated with the connections that children and families can have when they connect with animals. So that's just one of the ways in which children's books, help to navigate emotions. Can you expand on that a little bit more with your thoughts? How really children's books help kids to navigate emotions, build empathy, and bounce back stronger, knowing that everything's going to be okay?
Well, in my book, Coda, my dog, is the narrator, and it starts out with my dog, Kita, who passed away. And in the book, I try to share with the kids loss, but in as positive of a way as possible through Coda. And Coda talks about how, she learned all these stories from Kita, and then I, kids love dogs and love all animals, and kids lose animals. My daughter Amber just lost Coda's sister, and I had and it's difficult to lose a pet. So I am trying in the book not only to do individuality, diversity, but also loss, and how to deal with that when a child loses a pet, and trying to navigate it and make it a positive experience. Sorry.
Oh no, I can. That really hits a chord with me because in Walking Each Other Home, Zachary's mission, a hospice for children, the story's about a brave 8-year-old boy named Zachary who's given a terminal cancer diagnosis, and that's pretty heavy. In the story, it's shown that he has, in a dream, it's shown that he has a mission to help create a children's hospice in San Diego, but he's not alone. He has 4 earth angels to help him with his mission. And there's Jane, the loving grandmother, Dennis, the Italian restaurant owner, Georgianne, the animal-loving storyteller, and Patrick, the Reiki master. And they all come together to San Diego to help Zachary and his family raise the necessary funds. But they help to remind him about the different meanings of unconditional love along the way. So to tie into what Carrie had mentioned, that even if we are moving through something, it can be grief, it can be loss, it can simply just be, hey, I've had a bad day. Just knowing the fact that there's trusted helpers. I want to give thanks to the Jefferson Theater Group. We have some amazing kids who are here today, and they're helpers in their own way as well too. Just knowing the fact that the importance of having people in our lives, you can call them helpers, you can call them earth angels, as I do in my story, but just knowing the fact that we're all here to make the world a better place, not even just for ourselves, but for those who we love, we care about, and especially those that we're blessed to be of service to. As we've explored the power of stories to ignite curiosity and build empathy, there's really another dimension that today's kids can't escape. And I wanted to mention this in our time today: media overload and the constant stream of news and social media and digital distraction. But we have 2 people here who, even though they spend a large part of time sharing the news and sharing stories, they do it in a way in which people can process and they can integrate, and they just, you get both you, Joe and Shayla, you let people know, like, hey, I'm in this with you, so to speak. So in a world overflowing with fast media and endless screens, Joe, I'm going to start off with yourself. How can we help children to shift from passive consumption to immersive reading? And what does that shift offer in terms of deeper dimension, richer language, and greater emotional insight?
There are a lot of big words in that question, John. I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to ignite a spark. And the spark could be anything from wanting to be like a character in the book, or the spark could be, this is such a good book, I want to read another one. And that's really what our job is. The spark in our book, in my book, is really, I call it our books, is Joe's story. The spark is really to take your time and be a good person. And I think what happens is, in this me generation, once in a while I think kids and adults are surprised that when you reach out, when you make an extra positive impact on the world, a lot of good stuff comes back. That's the best way to be the me generation, by giving of yourself, because what happens is ultimately so much good will come in return. So that's the message that I think we can get along with igniting that spark.
And Shayla, your thoughts, your reflections?
I think when I first heard your question, it kind of reminded me of a story someone shared with me, since coming here. Two things that have just followed me regardless of where I've lived. As a journalist, as people like to talk to me, and if I have to learn sad news, I want to learn it from you. And we've had a lot of really challenging things happen in the news cycle. And someone had shared with me, I moved to Minnesota a few months after the murder of George Floyd. And they were someone who was involved in assisting the community. They were involved in a church, and just the impact of that time was so intense for them that they needed to take a sabbatical just to decompress. And one of the things that their therapists had told them as they tried to reintegrate into some of the spaces that they had to pull away from was to try to reconnect and watch the news. And I had just moved to town when they were getting that message. And part of why I decided to move to Minnesota is I felt that the specific things that have followed me would be impactful here at a time like then. There was a lot that I didn't know, that I was coming into a community in the middle of COVID and couldn't experience it all, as you would if we weren't all closed in. But sometimes the way in which we just naturally show up in the world is enough. And for that particular person sharing that experience with me, they said just how I showed up and delivered the news for them at that time allowed them to reconnect with a space that had been very traumatic for them. And so sometimes I think the world is a very complex and challenging place, and it can feel like, even myself, I pull away. Like I tell you the news every day, but I have large chunks of time in my day where I'm not watching the news and I'm finding other things to create and be a part of. But I think that it's important to create those windows, create those opportunities to escape and disconnect from that, because it can feel overwhelming in a world that is dealing with a lot of challenges right now. And it can feel like, oh, there's all these things that are going on. I don't know how to impact the world when there's so much. And sometimes a book can be that tool to show you that one little part that you can do. In my book, Echo in the Distance, I try to remind people that regardless of what we look like, we can all be a part of realizing the dream that Dr. King shared so many years ago. And it can be as simple for a kid as taking the time to sit with someone else at lunch, or maybe grabbing a bag and helping somebody when it's too heavy. There's something really small that we can do in a world with a lot of really hard things to make the place that we all call home a little bit better.
And then January with fast media, with endless screens. I know you're very busy on your end of things, and you maximize the heck out of the 24 hours in a day and the 7 days in a week. I think this is also a needed reminder for us as parents and caregivers and custodians of little ones as well, too. So how can we help ourselves do our part to shift from the passive consumption to immersive reading, and even more so just being more in the present moment?
I think being very intentional. So being very intentional about what it is that you want to accomplish. So for me, I do want to accomplish reading more. You're right, John. A lot of us are very busy. We have a lot of layers in our lives. But being intentional about, hey, I do want to learn more about a language. Okay, so for example, my children and I are going to the Philippines end of the year, and we're trying to learn Tagalog, and we're being very intentional about it. Okay, 25 minutes a day, and even just like little chunks of time, right? Because I know a lot of us don't even have 5 minutes sometimes, right? But if we can say, hey, let's just put in that 5 minutes for ourselves, even taking a breath for 15 seconds, that was very intentional. And that allowed us to stop and think. A long time ago, it was probably right before COVID, we had 1 hour of reading for my children and I, and we would stop everything that we were doing. It was 1 o'clock, time to read. And we just stuck to it. So as long as you make it intentional and stick to it, I think those are the two tools that you need in order to really dig deep into reading and make it a lifestyle.
As we begin to wind down our panel discussion, our final two questions, it's important to note that stories, they don't just entertain, but they also empower as well too. They really can show kids that they can lead and they can make change happen, that kids aren't just the future. There was a song that said, I believe the children are our future. Rest in peace, Whitney Houston. But our kids are ready right now. The children of the future are the children of the present. Joe, how can stories inspire our kids to lead, to serve, and to take action in their communities and in their neighborhoods?
Well, I think that kids can motivate each other. And, we all learn by example. And if you see somebody doing something good for the community, you join in. These kids here volunteering today, they're, something good will come out of that. So, I think as adults, sometimes we all get so busy that we tend to forget that we are making an impact in everything we do and everything we say and how we act and how we react. And we have to be a little bit more careful, because are we leaving the positive impact on the kids? Because I believe it's contagious. And in kids, it's very contagious. I mean, it can go viral, but in the real sense, because kids they want to do more good, because all of a sudden they find out it's fun, and all of a sudden they like hanging around positive people and positive friends. So that's the ultimate thing, to create that wave.
And Dr. Roth, whether it be inspiring the next generation of veterinarians or just inspiring the next generation of kind adults, so to speak, how can stories inspire kids to lead, to serve, and to take action in their communities, and also be the best versions of themselves?
Yeah, I like this question because I'm probably going to answer it in a way that you weren't thinking about, because I'm pretty pragmatic. It's the science. I think that the way that reading impacts this is it gives them a physical reminder that it's okay to turn the page. That, you know what, I screwed up today, I get to turn the page. And that in and of itself, as a member of the community, is so important to remember that, you know what, today's another day. I can turn the page, you can turn the page. We all get the opportunity to turn the page. And that is what the pillars of the community now, before, and coming, will have to remember, that the pages will have to be turned.
To close our conversation on a helpful, hopeful note, for every parent that's here today, for every educator that's here today, for every librarian that's here today, for every human being that is here today, we can feel overwhelmed. And Dr. Schifferling, you're the perfect person to help us close this off. What real practical tools can help bring joy and purpose back into the reading journey, but also into our lives and our kids' lives?
I think just incorporating what everyone has shared, getting very intentional, leaning into connection, remembering that people won't remember always what we told them, but as Shayla was as characterizing for us, they'll remember how we made them feel. So when we are sharing, as all of us have done through our books, often challenging topics, big emotions, we can share them in such a way that makes children and their parents and their teachers feel acknowledged, seen, heard, valued, and that they can turn the page. Because emotions, sometimes we feel like emotions are something that will stay forever, but really it's a storm. And we can let it pass, and we can still be standing together and learn from what we've experienced as a community, as a classroom, as a family. So it's so important to share these stories and to remind us all that we can turn the page.
And then, Dr. Price, what tools you provide educators and parents with? Tools, not even just tools, but they go beyond that and so much more. What are some real practical tools that can help bring in joy and purpose back into the reading journey of our kids, but also for ourselves as well too, and in our lives, not just the reading journey?
So, reading and literature, is so critical and important for our kids' development. And we know reading with your child is a point where you can connect and make those bonds with your child. So reading with your child, going through those experiences of the joy of that kid going through, understanding what the character is about, and going through the character's journey is so important. And I think, like, when you talk about literature and we talk about reading, all those are elements of helping the overall holistic view of what we talk about when we talk about education. As an educator myself, I see this day in and day out with our kids across the country, where there's elements of kids like reading below reading level. You see this as a problematic thing going across the country, and these are things that are shared amongst not just educators, but also families as well. And so being able to bridge the gap between school and home and have them understand, hey, take time out to read with your child. There's de-escalation techniques. I know sometimes kids get frustrated and upset. There's a lot of de-escalation techniques. Sometimes it'll just be a thing of maybe taking 3 deep breaths. Like in one of my books, I use that as a de-escalation technique, or taking time to be to oneself for a moment. And then when their feelings and stuff can subside a little bit, then you can have those critical, good conversations with your child. And also, sometimes it's just as well as using those moments as a teachable moment in the moment. So when children are having issues and concerns, using those moments in the moment as teachable moments to teach those necessary skills to be able to cope, utilize coping skills and things of that nature, to be able to navigate those things. And of course, like I always say, these are skills that will last a kid's a lifetime as well.
Before we shift gears into our Q&A, because again, we've shared a lot, and we're always integrating and processing in the real moment, I just wanted to have everyone share a brief takeaway, because I feel that whenever we enjoy an experience, it's always important to, it's a healthy circle back to what I mentioned. We want you to be able to, whether you're here or you're watching online at home, we want you to be able to take away something from today and know the fact that, again, things are continuing to get better for you, that you're creating the highest and best version of yourself. You're doing that for your children as well, too. If there's one takeaway that you want people to take away from our time together today, we'll start off actually with yourself, Dr. Schaefer, and then we'll go around the horn here, and we'll go around the horn here. What would be your takeaway?
From today, it really just reinforced my mission of connection, because I think we've all learned so much from one another, and I'm so grateful to be here and to hear these stories, because everyone here has such beautiful stories to share, and you can get those through reading the books, but I think the most beautiful moments of connection happen when we get to share, answer questions, and just make sure that everyone understands how valuable what they have to say is. So thank you for this opportunity for myself and to get to know all these beautiful people, John. This has been incredible.
It's interesting, Joe. We had a conversation in New York City at the Sheraton Tribeca, and you said, John, how about building a culture of reading in your classroom at Mall of America? And I said, okay, sure. What's the next step? So you're a powerful manifester. Just have to say that on your end of things, Joe. But what would be your takeaway from today that you want to leave those here today, and then those who are watching at home?
Well, I would think that the two things that came out of the panel with all these brilliant writers up here are, A, don't be afraid to show your vulnerability, and B, if you want to connect to somebody, show them your heart. And when you show your heart through writing, that's where the connection happens. And I think in every single one of these cases, I mean, my goodness, if you read all these books in here, just imagine all the knowledge that the kids could get, everything from animals to Dr. Martin Luther King to on and on and on. This alone, this library here alone, would teach kids values that they could take the rest of their lives. So it's an honor to be up here.
Thank you, Joe. Allie, your takeaway from today?
Yeah, parents and teachers, we need to be present for kids. I think we all heard that there's so much distraction, so much busyness, so much on our plates, and kids need us to be present for them because they have real needs, and they need us to be examples of being present in the world so that they grow up to be present. And it is a hard job as parents, as educators, as authors, as whatever you are in the world. But the kids need us, and I hope that I can do that for my own kids and for the kids I encounter. And I know all of these amazing authors and educators and those of you here today can do the same. So let's show up for this generation.
Dr. Roth, your takeaway for today?
I am feeling a sense of belonging. We all have big day jobs. We all took time away from our families, our sense of home, to come and share and to talk about our passion that is putting together these books. I don't run into a whole lot of veterinarians that are children's book authors. I don't run into a whole lot of children's book authors that are veterinarians either, right? And so it's nice to have that sense of camaraderie, of looking at somebody else's book and knowing the blood, sweat, and tears that went into getting it just right, so that that one child that needs to read it gets the message that they're supposed to. So, sense of belonging.
Dr. Price, your takeaway?
My takeaway is, I was fortunate to be able to be building the culture reading in the classroom in Los Angeles. And being here today in the Twin Cities, the thing I've taken away from this, we have so many brilliant minds here and so many brilliant authors. I'm just in awe of being able to share understanding the knowledge of how important we're all making the emphasis on children and how important the children's development is, how important their development is, how being able to nurture them, have children nurture their ways, be able to navigate the tough world in which we live. And I think that's the thing I've really gotten pulled away from this whole discussion and things. I think it's wonderful that we're able to have this kind of open discussion like this to be able to help community educators, families and communities as well.
Thank you, Dr. Price. Carrie, your takeaway for today?
Well, it just amazes me, John, how you had brought such diversity in authors together. I just want to sit and read everyone's book right now, And
we'll have time for that.
Yeah, I know. And I have 5 grandkids. It's like, oh, I gotta buy these books and have them reading, finance and the vets and Joe's story and everyone's story. It's just, I am just blown away from just all your incredible stories, and I just can't wait to read them. And I'm hoping that, all the kids will, if they hear this, they'll like, oh yeah, I want to read about that, because there's so many different aspects of learning that is in just this group right here. It targets so many different parts of education, having been an educator for 35 years, and it's just like, I'm just blown away. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Carrie. January, your takeaway?
There's so many, but there are only 2 that I'm going to talk about. Number 1, what Dr. Roth said, a sense of belonging. We are more alike than we think we are, and I think that's one thing I do love about everybody in this room, is that we're here for one purpose, and that leads me to the next one, is that we all love children. Because I see everyone in here just trying to impact kids, and all the brilliant minds, not just on the panel, but everyone else here. We're trying to reach out to the young ones, and it really is where it starts, is when they're little, when they're young. And so I appreciate everyone that's here, because we're all movers and shakers, and we want to not just talk about it, but really apply everything that we've learned. And so that's my biggest takeaway, is that all of us are here for one purpose, and that's to really impact the children.
Shayla, your takeaway?
My takeaway would be that the world needs what all of us has to offer, and that each person here didn't just sit on the thing that they thought needed to be in the world, and that each person here found the courage to put that book into the world. You never know what life it's going to take on, what person it's going to inspire, and how just the courage to do the thing that you thought needed to be in the world is going to change someone else's world too. And so in all of us, I feel that what we've felt driven to share is going to be life-changing in ways that we may not always get to see. And so I feel very inspired by all of you, and I'm sure that others will have the chance to be as well.
All of you guys are rock stars. I have to say that in many respects. My brief takeaway, and we will still be having some time for some questions, and then I want to ensure that we have time for everyone to be able to get their copies of all of our books as well, too, whether it be for yourselves, for someone that you love and care about. After my grandmother had passed, communicating with my grandmother regularly through prayer and meditation, I said, Babcha, show me whom to serve, how to serve, when to serve, where to serve, and in what capacity to serve, and I'm there. And I am profoundly grateful for 11 plus years to do not even just PR publicity work for children's authors, but to bring people together to share their stories. Because I really believe when we share our stories, there's a lot of magic that happens, there's a lot of healing that happens. Just as we took the time to check in and remember those who helped love us into being, I encourage all of us before we head into a couple of Q&As, just kind of do a little emotional check-in right now. And just ask yourself, am I feeling better now than when building a culture of reading in your classroom, the panel discussion component began? And even if it's just a little bit, you're feeling a little bit better, take that momentum and continue to move forward. Because again, we can do our part to create a ripple effect from this event alone and the lives that we touch. And just to be able to put that love, that kindness, that compassion out there into our communities and our neighborhoods, because this is literally going to be having a global impact in the process. We're going to be giving one of these microphones to one of our hired helpers over here. If there's any questions that we have, we'll probably have time for about like 3 questions or so, 3 to 5 questions, before we then transition into our meet and greet and signing. So was there anyone that had any questions at all in any way, shape, or form? If we've answered your questions, that's fantastic, but we do have a question over here. We also want to give a shout out to the team at the Free Book Buggy, one of the Twin Cities' leading children's literacy organizations. They do such great work, and when I have the opportunity to travel to different communities, neighborhoods, and cities across the country, I meet amazing people. Jude and Debbie, you do, some people use the expression, you do God's work in many respects, and I feel that just helping children and giving them that lifeline and bringing a super cool buggy in the process to go about doing it. So, Jude, what would be your question?
Well, my question is really more in the form of that you all, oops. I'm not used to needing one. More in the form of a request. As you know now what we do in our community, and we know that there is opportunity undiscovered in the communities where you live. And I would request that as each of you go home, I mean, Shayla and Joe are here, so here we are, but as you go home, reach out and see what opportunity there is for you just to give the word out that there is someone giving books to children. You talk about STEM, you talk about the need, and the need for everyone is to get the book in the hand of a child. The younger, the better. And that's what we're trying to do. And I am sure in your communities when you go home, maybe on a small basis, which is where Debbie started, very small, will grow into the 500,000 books that the Free Book Buggy has provided. And will continue to do so. So thank you for the information that you provided. It did nothing but tell Debbie and I that we're doing the right thing. And we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or even shares and reflections? Because we open those as well too. We shared our takeaways, so even if someone doesn't necessarily have a question, but just a takeaway, the infamous, I learned today. I feel like an episode of South Park, this is what I learned today. We're all channeling our inner Eric Cartman as we're closing things out here today.
Hello, my name is Nathan, and I'm a kindergarten teacher. I want to thank you all for inspiring me with your words and wisdom, and I just want to thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. It's just as you're thanking us, Nathan, this is a reflection of our gratitude back to you, because educators are so underappreciated and undervalued, and I want to share this with you, with all the educators in this room, but really put out like a Morse code to all educators across the country and around the world, that you are loved, that you are appreciated, that you are respected, that you are valued more than you know. And even if there's days and moments that you don't feel like it, that you're wondering whether your work is making a difference, you are making a difference, and educators like yourself are making a difference in the Twin Cities and beyond. Any other remaining questions, reflections? We have one over here, and we'll have time to take 2 others as well, too.
Hello, my name is Rose. I work in the St. Paul Public Libraries, and today I'm just so incredibly inspired by all of your books and all of your thoughts and everything that you shared today. So I loved what you said about the overall theme is a sense of belonging, and that we all love children, and we want to bring reading to children. I'm wondering what resources or communities would you recommend for readers to learn even more about the topics in which you write about and share? Thank you.
One thing that does come to mind, I'm very fortunate to, we mentioned Mr. Rogers several times. David Newell, who played the beloved Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. David and I, for the last 4 years, co-host a program called the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. And we do our part to be able to spotlight and share, as I like to say, deliver heartfelt reviews of the newest children's books that are available from traditionally published authors and also self-published authors. So noting the fact of whether it be a program like the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast or the Children's Book Spotlight Series, I'm also very fortunate to host one of the longest running, most successful children's book podcasts in the world of children's literature. Many of these authors have appeared on the program, so heading over to the PR From the Heart website, which if you're watching at home as well is prfromtheheart.com, and also joining the near 30,000 subscribers to the official PR From the Heart YouTube channel. So those resources are out there. I also encourage people to continue to connect and support your local libraries, your children's and independent bookstores, because David Newell and I coined the term, well, maybe we didn't coin the term, but they really are the pillars of our community, so to speak, and noting the fact that especially since we're living in a world in which certain things could look like they're being taken away or could be taken away, to just really do your part to continue to support children's authors and children's illustrators and everyone in the world of children's literature. The last thing I'll mention on your thread, one of the things that you can do, not even just for all the authors here on stage, but all authors in general, is to leave that 5-star Amazon review and to simply just share a kind word on social media, because I can speak on behalf of myself, but probably all of the authors here on stage. There's days where we wake up and we probably say, is our work making a difference? Who are we impacting? And then we get that 5-star review or just that kind word, or we say, my story has helped me, or your story has helped me because da-da-da-da and such and such. And knowing that fact, that really makes a world of difference as well, too. And just continue to support all of these amazing authors on their journey as well, too. I've been very blessed and fortunate to call all of you friends, colleagues, and it's there really is something special that we've created here today. And again, my hope is that we can continue to create that ripple effect that's out there moving forward from here. We'll take time for one last question before we officially conclude. That is one big shout out that I want to give. Julie Gribble was actually going to be joining me today. She is the founder, owner, and operator of KidLit TV. Julie is with us in spirit. She was just tending to something very important on the home front in New York City. KidLit TV is the gold standard in the world of children's literature. They're featured and have access to nearly 1 million schools across the country and around the world. 2 of their flagship programs, one of which is called Read Out Loud. It is the go-to online story time for kids out there as well, too. KidLit TV has featured, especially Read Out Loud, such children's authors as Craig Melvin, who's, of course, the co-anchor from NBC's Today Show, David Sable, who's on the board of the Special Olympics. He's one of LinkedIn's top influencers. And then also they have another program called Story Makers, which is hosted by Rocco Stano, the former contributing editor of the School Library Journal. So KidLit TV, want to give a shout out to them. They do incredible work as well too. And so again, Julie is with us in spirit. So when you look at the graphic of building a culture of reading in your classroom, you see the Mall of America Community Foundation logo, you see the PR from the Heart logo, but a big shout out to the folks at KidLit TV as well. And again, for all of those who are watching at home as well, one of the many ways that you can continue to do your part is to share this panel discussion that you have been enjoying, and you can share it on your favorite social media platforms of your choosing. But again, on behalf of all of these amazing authors, I want to thank you for your time. Again, it is the most precious currency that we have. You decided to come out here today and really spend some time with us. So we're very grateful for all of you. So before we head on over, we're going to get a nice big group photo here. We also want to thank our videography team, 152 Media, our amazing photographer, Kate, who's here today as well too, because this could not have been possible without, it's long since been said that it takes a village, and I think there's probably been about 5 villages that have helped to create this event together today. So we want to thank everyone for your time and for your attention. And as I like to say here, and I've said it for many years, we want to thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, and for your continued support of children's authors, for children's illustrators, for the pillars of our community, local libraries, and children independent bookstores. But truly, thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. So thank you for joining us for Building a Culture of Reading in Your Classroom 2025. It has been our pleasure. Oh, yep. Oh, wait, okay. Okay. Feel free.
It was more just, I wanted to say thank you to for this, because even though while still being a high school student, going around before and getting to see all the books, it was incredible to see all the different art styles and ways each author had a way of introducing a topic. And I remember when I was going through a hard point of my life, my mom allowed me, she works at a school, so she works with kindergartners as a para. She allowed me to volunteer, and my favorite thing was when I got to help the kids for reading. They always loved getting to pick out the different books, for seeing the different styles. So I just want to say thank you for allowing to bring those creative aspects, so I can continue getting to see people have fun and learn new things.
Thank you. And we will all be adjourning here. So we're going to take a nice big group photo first things first as well too, and then we'll be meeting all of you at our tables. We'd love to connect with all of you one-on-one as well too. Thank you so much again, once again.